Right, so I'm sure you noticed very different films, but both connected in many different ways, not only in the appreciation of a very ancient female craft, but also through the Islamic influence. The last shot of your film, Kimsooja, is the Hamra. Is it called Alhambra? Alhambra. And then, of course, we continue the film in Morocco. Thank you very much. Maybe a first question to you, Kimsooja. The film we've just seen is actually not the entire story. It has 5 siblings. It's one part of a 6-part video series, which you have worked on for years. It's 6 videos that take place in different countries, in different continents of the world, looking at the different arts of textiles. So could you maybe expand what made you come across these locations, Croatia and Bruges? What made you interested in bobby lacing in particular? Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here with us in this late time, and I'm sure everybody's tired and hungry. But just to help a little bit what this film is about. Actually, I conceived this film in 2002 when I saw a woman doing this bobbin lace making on a street in Bruges in Belgium. I immediately was fascinated by their performative element and the structural element of the formation and construction of the lace making. And I immediately connected also the architecture of that city compared the soft structure of the lace making and textiles women are doing, and also the architectural construction work that male are mostly doing. So also connecting those elements of yin and yang element of the structural aspect of needlework or also the bobbin lace making work. I decided to do a film, but it took almost 10 years to start, and I'm still doing it. So far, the first film chapter was in Peru, mostly weaving and knitting and spinning hems and local natural phenomenon, and also architectural sites to juxtapose. And then the second chapter was back to Bruges. I also extended in Burano in Italy, and also Croatia in different cities, and then architectural juxtaposition in various locations, as you saw. And then I did also the nomadic Indian tribes, block printing and ikat, double ikat making, and also embroideries in Gujarat and Kutch. Then I completed also recently the Chinese chapter that was focused on Tong minority, Li minority, and also the Miao minority in different states of the China. And I'm preparing the Native American Indians weaving scene, and also juxtapose also the urban fabric, such as highway structures, and also the fabric of the caves and nature in Arizona and Mexico City, New Mexico area, and then final chapter will be actually Africa in the Mali, and I've been also thinking of Morocco. So yeah, I have many questions also for you. So it's a long project and big project, but I'm happy to present this first idea I had for the whole project tonight.
And it's as you can see, it's a really ambitious project. It takes years, and it will still take a couple of years. And you really travel the world. You do your research, and you find exactly the kind of workshop, the kind of work you want to explore and aesthetically translate on camera. With this work here that we've seen, you also go back to your artistic practice which started with making sculptures out of actual textiles, the Korean pottery work. And one of my main points in the discussion today was actually to connect the work to the artistic practice in order to prevent us, the audience, to easily and too quickly link these films to the documentary. Because yes, the camera is observational in some parts at least, but it doesn't make the work a purely documentary work. It is still an artistic work. The way in which the specifics of the craft are being highlighted relate to your artistic work as well. And for me, it's very important to point that out. Otherwise, our analysis of the work is not precise enough if we just shove it into the documentary corner. You've started with the needlework, and then you became yourself a needle, stitching your way through the globe. And then you also finally ended up with, in a way, handing over the needlework also to others. So from your own practice, you explore the wider world of what you have been doing yourself as an artist for years and years and years. So could you maybe explain to the audience, not all of you may know her work, her sculptures, her installations, her other video performance work. Explain a little bit the thread that literally and metaphorically runs through your artistic practice up until now.
Yes, it's actually always progressive and process-oriented work, and developing actually different concepts I discover and learn from my own actions and perceptions over 3 decades. But I basically started as a painter, so I always have perception and question on the surface, on tableau, and also the drawing, painting, all this painterly issue was mine, and also the instead of canvas and brush, I in a way chose the bed cover and needle that expressed my question on the surface and my question on the other and self, and also to the bed cover as a frame of our lives, where we get born, love, dream, suffer, and die. So it's like always wrapping and unwrapping, questioning further, connecting to the most current issues of contemporary art. And although I always use the used textiles from Korea, and always already ready-made and already used one, but my textile work and also needlework started as a avant-garde reaction to the painting, and that was actually evolved into the video work, not as I was interested in making images, but as a method of immaterial way of wrapping the world and the nature. So my question from painter evolved parallelly. One towards the formalistic question on the painting and sculpture, performance, drawing, and installation, towards more immaterial way, but at the same time question on myself and the other, and also the human being and our destination, and contemplating, or also in a way commemorating our destinies and human condition in this era.
Part of the reason why I was interested in working a little bit through the idea of needlework and textile making is because you might agree or not, but there's been a profound shift through the internet and digital technology in the way in which we connect to the world and also how we think. And in my little handout, I mentioned Spider-Man, who had a really massive return in the last decade, and I think it's for a reason. It's because his web represents the way we understand the world now that we are also connected digitally. And academics have been exploring what they call the topology of thinking. What's the pattern or the geometrics of your thought? So maybe from left and right and Greek philosophy to something that is more mobile and more related to multiple layers and a kind of biomorphic maybe shape and form. And the digital media is one side, but the other side also is, of course, I think that here in the West we start to look more and more towards models of thinking and philosophy outside the West. And I mentioned the Islamic connection myself. I live in Cairo, so this also regards my personal life. And I wanted to ask at this point Hassan Hajjaj about your film, the connection of the film to your practice, the covering of the body in a kind of almost rampant, invasive way, where the pattern makes its way up the arm and further, as something that's is almost organic and of course for us Westerners, it's not modernist in the sense that we understand our look at the world, since the Enlightenment.
Hi, everybody. I think, when I started to do this work, what attracts me about Karima, also the textile she would wear. And one time I was doing a shoot with her, and it was an animal print fabric, and she had henna on her hands and her feet, and it just became like a camouflage to me. So I realised there's kind of a kind of repeated pattern we have in North Africa, from mosaics to the textile, and obviously carries on skin. So it was an idea of really trying to show her as an artist, because sometimes I think with henna it can get looked down at as she's a henna girl, it's for weddings, circumcision. So it was a combination of all this. Really, I wanted to kind of try to move away and show her as an artist, as you said, to this kind of practice that's kind of there regular, but it doesn't get looked at in this kind of way as well.
But the fashion is your fashion, or how?
Well, I mean, my inspiration is from the people in Marrakesh. Karim has been a big inspiration. You can see some of the garments are designed, and some of it, like the jalaba she had, that's hers. Basically, I asked her to wear that because I knew the colours she had. And as I said, it really is. It was about this kind of playing with the fashion ability with, as an artist, as I say, the henna, to say also working with the syringe, which is kind of strange. So for me, it was a combination of all this and trying to, you know, to show something that's actually there. I'm just highlighting something.
I made the formal connection also between your work and the film in this almost, if you studied medieval art history, the horror vacui, which is the horror of the void or the hole. So there's a period in medieval painting in Holland and here where people just cover the surface. Nothing is left uncovered. And I see that in your work, in your photographs, you know, of your sitters stand behind the pattern background. You run a shop in London which sells all kinds of wrapped up artist work. I mean, that you have a tendency to kind of almost like an obsessive covering with an aesthetic that's inspired by Morocco.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you saw Kim's work as well, and you saw Alhambra, I mean, I've been there, and again, looking at it, and you can see just so much details. So I think that came out in me naturally, growing up in Morocco. You know, every house has tiles, patterning, and again, for some reason, we don't get scared from clashing colours or analyse the colour. This should go with this. So I think it's really something that I grew up with there, and along the way as I'm working, I'm realised not to be scared from clashing, and try to see what the final work at the end of it. So for me, I'm kind of celebrating the clashing of colours and patterns and stuff. So basically, I think that kind of shows in the film as well. How everybody what they're wearing as well.
And speaking of clashes, I wanted to address particularly the henna boy. Because when I showed this film to my girlfriends in Cairo, my Egyptian girlfriends, you might have well put E.T. in there. You know, it's not even in their imagination. They know, or they could ever imagine this character, this figure. I mean, how did that work in an Islamic country to have this? Who is he?
Well, for me, really, Anwar really gives the film an extra edge, because all of a sudden you're seeing a veiled woman and somebody, you know, kind of coming from that kind of side, being free. The story of Anwar, basically, he was a young kid growing up in the square, and his mum said to Karim, look, please, can you make him do something with you so he doesn't get in trouble on the street. So he would go and get a tea and henna, you know, just kind of run errands for her. And Karima, when she saw me about 14, getting to 14, 15, he was becoming like a young man. She said, listen, you have to do something with yourself. You can't be doing this for me. And he said to her, listen, I really would love to do henna. So she started teaching him, and now they work as a group. So it's sort of, there's like 4 of them basically working together.
So, but what about he's so feminized. He wears makeup and...
Well, I mean, that was his, you know, that was what he wears. I mean... He's there, I'm sure he's there right now as we speak. I mean, I wanted to pass this, you know, I wanted to when he agreed to be in the film as well, I want hopefully the film to pass the veil, him being with makeup and hijab, because in every country around the world you get guys like this, in whatever, from a religious country or not. And for me, Anwar, I'm proud of him because he kind of freed himself. He's the kind of person, if you call him names, he's going to have 10 answers to it. If you physically fight him, he's going to beat you up. He's, you know, had to really fight for himself, but he freed himself. And you can see in the film, he's become like a film star for me in the film.
Yes, there's a lot of focus.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about his sexuality. He's, you know, that's how he is. Karima, that's the way she is. And, you know, I didn't really wanted to do a film about politics, religion, or sexuality, or colour of skin. I just wanted something to be about normal people, maybe from a different background, tradition, religion, but hopefully they can cross over to other different cultures as well.
And what's your take, both of you, more philosophically speaking, or more conceptually speaking? Philosophically is a big word, let's just say. Conceptually speaking, on, especially in your work, on pattern making, on threads, and on the needlework. Can you just say a little bit more, because it's very complex? Because I think, you know, needlework is almost like a DNA of your work and your thinking, and it's much more than the material of art making. So could you just expand a little bit more on this more abstract level of your engagement with this kind of craft?
As I started sewing work, not because I was interested in sewing or I was particularly good at that, or I was a woman artist, but as a question on the surface and structure of the surface, and the question on the surface and behind that, to unify the self and the other by this mean of wrapping the thread around the surface. In the end, it naturally grew the series of deductive object series, wrapping fabrics onto the existing folklore Korean objects that also one day rediscovered as a bottari bundle, which I had always in my studio, but rediscovered it as painting at the same time, three-dimensional sculpture and object. Since that time, I restates the existing the bundle bottari in Korean as my practice and as my performance and installation and object that in a way is loaded memory and presence of body, and at the same time location dislocation, and that also extends the notion of time as past and present and future, that was all related to and rooted from needlework and the relationship with the needle and the thread. And the needle, in my Needlewoman video, I was able to transform myself as a medium only because I think the nature of the needle that has a void allowed me, and also the way I stand against the viewer's eye to my face, I was able to invite the audience's body to my body, so that audience sees what I see. But in this film, I am in a way disappeared, and I only show the way I look at things. So in a way, the whole film about thread roots is how I look at the world, how I look at things, how I connect things, that in different practices and nature of the things in the world, and also in psychological dimension, and the structure of the void that exists in needlework, and also in architectural and natural phenomenon in this world. So we will talk about more, but I think at least this would give some idea about how I approach, and my practice is rooted from the perspective of a needle point that has only position but no physicality. Also the needle point, edge of the needle point that meets to the void, open to the void, that allow me to also expand the immaterial world and transformative and transcendent element of my practice.
Yeah, I could listen to her for hours. Hassan.
Yes. Sorry. What
can you say?
Exactly. I think Kim said everything. No. I think I'm learning a lot here. I mean, for me with the henna, I'm really trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to push Karima to kind of look at more as an art form as well, and trying to push her to experiment. And to kind of think of it as being different, because as you can see, she's day in, day out doing, you know, the tourists. And when you work in that way, it's a different type of work than actually doing weddings and stuff like that. It's more, you know, it's a lot more work when you're doing that. So at the moment, after finishing this film, even me, I've learned a lot while I was filming about the henna and seeing how she, you know, works. And I'm trying to do a project with her for the end of next year, where I'm trying to push her to experiment with, you know, trying to kind of push her into an art form, I suppose.
Can you tell just briefly a little bit about the history of henna painting? Did it travel from Turkey?
I think Turkey, India. I mean, you know, historically, I can't say too much, as probably knows much people, you know, the basic stuff. But as you could see, even in for tourists, she says she didn't start until '98. Where prior to that, it was basically for, you know, when I was a kid, I had to have henna done at certain points and stuff. So it's still more practice for local people at the moment, I suppose, because tattoos are trendy. You know, the henna's kind of got a small percentage on that. But I'd say I'm still learning, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm just learning from Karima about the henna.
About henna, and yeah,
I have to take it to Karima.
Yeah, I did some film in China, and also India. Actually, the tattoos. Actually, they have a lot of tattoos, and also in China. But yeah, henna is similar but very different too. And the movement of the line is much more like a drawing, like, and
yeah, because it stains. So yeah,
yes,
it's about staining at the end of the day.
Very interesting, because I never seen actual making it. Yeah, and performative element. And she's super good at. Yeah, I was so impressed.
Let's see at this point. I mean, we can talk more, but let's see. I would love to know the impression of the audience. How did you think the two works related? Which one was your favorite? We have the mic is coming because we're recording this. So over there at the back.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
As far as impressions, I would just say hats off to all three of you.
Thank you.
The two films were a pretty stark juxtaposition, but the first film was very meditative. And I especially loved the limited use of sound from the opening frame. I thought, am I listening to sort of bamboo wind chimes? What is that? And then we realized that it's the wooden spools or the bobbins. Through to the end with water whose source I was never justified to. I mean, I didn't really know where that was coming from. And then we went into this immediate sort of raucous, almost sensory overload. And yet, as she was pulling on her socks, remember really vividly patterned black and white socks, I found myself thinking about the manufacture of those socks, and I flashed back to the industrial footage from your film. So, not only were they great standalone pieces, but I think that the thread that connected them, if you'll pardon me, was really remarkable. So,
thank you.
Hats off to.
Thank you very much. I have to admit, I was a little bit apprehensive whether you were going to crush her. But your film is just, you know, so detailed and so strong. It can really stand.
Explain that the water sound. Yes, actually, yes. It is from Alhambra fountain. Actually, I wanted to juxtapose the structure of the water dropping, the structure of dropping, and also structure of the carving of the structure. That's why I juxtaposed together.
It was lovely.
Thank you.
For me, I think sound-wise, my brain really jumped when the sound of the wooden, what do you call them? Bobbin. Moves from the Gothic church to the skeleton decor, and this, the whole notion of death rushing into the thinking around weaving.
And also performative element of it. Yeah.
Yes. Your sound, Hassan. What's the tell me quickly about the music, Hassan.
Basically, the friend of mine wrote the track for Karima, Komi, and then I try to use something that's kind of trying to keep it Moroccan, but something new, something kind of street, rough, with some soul. So it was, as you can see, there's some scenes really long. I dragged them on purpose to put some good music. It's a thing. So the music was really important part of the film for me. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's just another layer.
Yeah.
Of just covering surfaces.
Yeah, and it was interesting because, like this gentleman said, after watching the film, it was calm, and I was like, oh, I'm getting scared to show my filth up there. But it worked because it was just, it was.
Because it also breaks the tension of my film. Because my film is very much focused and quite intense to watch, and with no narration or no other sound of human voice, and so I was quite relaxed actually when you started. Oh, it's good.
Yes.
I saw a hand up over there, the gentleman.
Yes. I have a question concerning the henna. There is a tradition in the anti-atlas to paint veils with henna, and I mean a very old tradition. There are some very, very, very old pieces. So you mentioned, henna in India, and then coming over and starting in '98 on the Kimsooja. But henna must have a very old tradition in Morocco.
Oh no, it's
in the south.
Yeah. Sorry. She was talking about the actual square she was working in. That's when it started after '98. Henna's been, from as far as historically, it's been there for centuries. So it's it's an Islamic thing where it could be used for the body, the hair.
Could you just repeat where they paint the veils? Where?
In the anti-atlas, that
Anti-atlas.
south of the atlas, there's another chain of mountains before the Sahara comes.
Yeah, sub-Sahara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Let's see, sometimes people need time. Yes. See, I knew it. There's a hand there.
Thank you very much. A little technical question. Kimsooja Kim's work, for me, is more like an art film, and meditative and contemplative and so forth. And Shukran, your film is beautiful, but for me it's more like a documentary film with a lot of music, and I love the Arabic rap. It's really, the atmosphere is fantastic. And when you know Morocco, it's really exactly, we feel exactly about Morocco. So as an artist, how do you stand? Do you plan to do documentary? Do you plan to do... it's a little bit technical, but I'm interested in that because also I'm in this part of the industry, and I know very well Kimsooja Kim's work because I collect part of her work. But what about your side? Yes, please.
I wanted to make this piece a film. I wasn't too sure what it's, at the end of the day, I was trying to make like kind of a B-movie style stroke documentary, I suppose, because it's about the person. And as you said, as an artist, this also I wanted to free myself, to challenge myself doing other stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck in what I should be for other people, and it's not about that. So for me, this is what I wanted to do. I've done the piece. Obviously, some people might like it, some people might not, but that's not a problem. I'm happy with the piece for for the challenge it gave me. And on top of that, as I say, I don't know what I'm going to be doing as a person in the next projects, whatever. I might become a bricklayer in 10 years' time. Who knows? So, as far as this question, sometimes there's pressure on people to say, stay on this kind of thing as an artist and not move. So maybe, basically, with this piece of film, I took one of the characters I've been taking pictures of for about 16 years, which is Karima. She really appears in a lot of my work over the years. And I wanted to do something on her and me stand aside, so it's not about me, it's about her. And I thought if this works, I can pull out some other characters because, as you could see, very interesting people doing their thing. And I realised I have lots of these people around me very luckily grown up with. And if this works, maybe every now and then pull out another character and do something about them. And so that was the kind of idea from there.
Yeah, I think actually both films have this act of giving over, the microphone, so to say, to the other. That is connected, but it's not yourself.
No.
Technically speaking, I really didn't have any idea about the 60mm film, but I just brought it and I started with no plot or no scenario whatsoever. We just decided the locations, and I just intuitively and instinctively just shoot different locations, and just had different location and some people planned. So I think the approach is also very different, and mine is short film, and Hassan's is a long film. And so it's the whole days wrapping together. And I find actually your film, in a way, very much like performative and event-like. And I think it's also very much the society that brings this kind of a nature of unwrapping the event of the day, or performative elements of the energy of the society.
It's interesting you're saying this, because the square they work out, for me, it's like a theatre, because they're there every day. You have the henna, the snake charmer, the monkey person, the gnawa, storytellers. So this is what they do every day, and then you have other people coming up, which I call other actors from different parts of the world, and they have to find a medium with them. They have to act as a henna person. So for me, it was interesting to see this as well. It's almost like theatre. When you sit there and you watch it, it's quite incredible.
It was almost the way they approach to the performative, the plaza, is almost like a guerrilla act. They are just kind of attacking the location and dominate and connects people. And it's kind of very interesting in terms of performance.
Well, that was the other thing. Karima, one of the things that attracted me about Karima was she's the third generation there. So, and when you go there, that's street life. You could see they do 12 hours, 18 hours a day sometimes. And you have to be tough, because it's you have all sorts of people coming from pickpockets to, it's full on. So for me, this was an interesting thing as well, as all these elements of just beyond henna, about her, about...
They are very, armed. I see they are quite armed psychologically, but also physically.
Yeah, because every day, every person there they have some kind of thing going with. Somebody could be from Spain, so they have to act in that Spanish way. Somebody could be from France, they have to put out the French words, and then somebody local Moroccan, they have to go back to that. So for me, they were great actors in the sense they were comfortable. I was a bit worried they were going to be looking at the camera and stuff, and they just run with it. Anwar was actually he's got a small part in Hidlisi Kinky. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. So he's got a small part in that. It was quite a big Hollywood film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hideously Kinky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which part?
So he's Omar, the little kid.
Really?
Yeah. So if you watch it, you see him there in the square.
Oh no.
So I was also interested, also the fact that they have a veil, but their action is very intimate, in a physical, but in a way they protect themselves, keeping away from each other, and yeah, many interesting things to actually think about.
Lots of different layers. Yeah, I mean, this is quite good because they work as a group. And, you know, there's probably about 60 henna girls there now, and some of them are really tough. And Karim and her group, they sort of have a kind of a groove going between them somehow, the way they work. I don't know if you saw the piece when Anwar was trying to get the woman and the guy was saying no at first, and then as soon as he put henna, Karima's auntie immediately brought a stool, which she had to sit down, which means you can take your time to do henna, which means you can charge more. So all these psychology things, you know, I suppose street hustle.
Great. So maybe if there's no more comments, I would like to thank Hassan so much. Kimsooja, thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.